Okay, hello, welcome back. This is another video on Tiny Danny Reacts. Today we are watching the rise and fall of controller players in Fortnite. Let's get straight into it.
In a game as advanced as Fortnite, controller players had no business
I've been
competing with
controller
anybody
since
using a
Chapter
keyboard and
1,
mouse.
Season
But 2
2.
years after the game's release, they were completely terrorizing the competitive scene. At one
It's
point,
true.
85% of players in every major tournament played on controller, but today that number has plummeted to under 10%.
I
So
don't
how
believe it
did
was 85% though. Like, I feel like Chapter 1, Season, I don't know, 9, there was no way 85% of players were controller. Especially like World Cup. If you think about World Cup, it's like, what, 10 players were controller. There's no way 85%.
the group that makes up 3/4 of the entire player base struggle to compete at the highest level? This is the rise and fall of controller players in Fortnite. In the early days of Fortnite, if you played on PC, you would be using a mouse and keyboard, and if you played on console, you'd be using a controller.
It's
Because
true.
of this, everybody just agreed that KBM players were way better than controller players because PC is
I
better than
think in
console.
early
So
times
if you
they
played
kind of were
controller, you
though.
only
Like
played against other
Chapter
controller
1,
players, and the same
like
thing went with
Chapter 1
mouse and
Season 2,
keyboard.
Chapter
The
1
two
Season
most
4, they were
important things in
better.
Fortnite are having good aim and being good at building.
Yep.
This is where keyboard and mouse really had an advantage. It is much easier to aim using a mouse because you have your whole arm compared to a controller where all you have is a tiny plastic stick to move around with your thumb.
That's
Luckily,
true.
controller players had aim assist to make up for this, but it wasn't really that strong. Building on
Hmm,
keyboard was also way
it was
easier
kind of
than
strong.
controller because there are so many buttons you have to press. For the first few months after the game's release, controller players had to scroll through each build and press so many buttons in order to do something that only took one button press on a keyboard. Overall, playing on controller put you at a massive disadvantage until the Builder Pro setting was released in January of 2018. Builder Pro made building on controller similar to mouse and keyboard. You press one button to switch to your builds, then another one to instantly place a build piece, and use the same bind to switch back to your guns. This caused a massive jump to the skill level of all controller players. Although this was a massive improvement, KBM was still the better input to play on.
Get up on out my face, brother. Switch, by the way, head ass. Get up on out of here, brother.
And in September of 2018, Fortnite announced one of the most revolutionary things in gaming history: crossplay between PC and console.
When this came out, way harder to win games. Before, when I was playing my little Xbox One in my kitchen, so much easier to win games. And then you release crossplay, and I have to fight against PC players, because it's like, what was it, Chapter 1, Season 6, maybe 7? It was Chapter 1, Season 6, I think crossplay came out. Way more difficult. Miserable.
This was the first time ever where console and PC players would be matched in the same lobby. Once this happened, console players realized that they could just play on PC by plugging in their controller. Instead of playing on a console where they are capped at 60 FPS, they could now play on PC and have higher FPS.
I went from every FPS if you think about it, because I played Xbox 60 FPS, and then Chapter 2 Season 4, no, Chapter 2 Season 5 to 7, I played Nintendo Switch 30 FPS, then I went to a 120 FPS console, and then I bought a PC where I'm now 240 FPS. I played on every FPS if you think about it.
With much less input delay. With the increased performance, they were slowly getting closer and closer to mouse and keyboard players. On top of this, a few months after the crossplay update, something massive was discovered. A controller player named
Controller was like winning every game at this time, and I remember this as well. It was like, the more FPS you had, the more aim assist you had. I remember this was insane.
Shaw was messing around with his settings one day and realized that his aim assist was much stronger when he had higher FPS.
140 FPS, right? That's our frame rate limit. I've got a good computer. We're playing on low settings, so we should be hitting that no problem. Here's my buddy over here. So you can see the aim assist snap-on occurs really far away. So when I'm like about a couple feet away, I can snap right into his head. We just a single touch.
That's insane.
On L2. Now see what happens when I turn it all the way down to 30 FPS. So we're still the same distance away, but one tap does not drag me into his head at all.
He turned his game all the way down to 30 FPS and had little to no aim assist, but as he raised it higher and higher, it became stronger and stronger. This discovery would cause every controller player who took the game seriously to switch to PC immediately. Shortly after this discovery was the beginning of L2 spamming. Whenever you aim down sights, the aim assist would basically lock onto the player you're looking at, and this meant that constantly aiming in and out meant you would have robot-like aim. One of the first players to master L2 spamming was Aiden. He first blew up by competing at Fortnite's summer skirmish that took place at PAX West in 2018. At the time, Nick Merckx was considered to be one of the best controller players in the game, and Aiden planned on contesting him at this tournament. And he went on to do just that.
It's when like Aiden was unknown as well. Although Nick Merckx played awful. Also, look at how miserable controller looked back then. But Nick Merckx was like, he played it bad. I don't think Ghost Aiden was playing it that great.
Too much inside here. He's got to go for it. And here we go.
Look, he switches to a mini last night. He was playing bad there. I think he is at home would have been easier. I think it was him being at LAN got to him. Because he switches to a mini.
Switch to the wrong gun. Nick switched to the wrong gun.
He absolutely dominated Nick Merckx, making him the new best controller player. If you look at the leaderboard from this tournament, everybody but maybe 5 people played on a keyboard and mouse, but this was a turning point because controller players realized that they could compete. Starting in 2019, Fortnite began hosting tons of open tournaments, meaning anybody could play. Speaking of tournaments that anybody can compete in, Playground.gg is hosting a $10,000 tournament that anybody can play.
Anyone
They're
can
also
play.
giving away a custom-built PC signed by Peterbot. All you have to do is go to playacademy.gg, create an account, and connect your Fortnite account, then go to the Tournaments tab and sign up. Everybody who signs up for the tournament is automatically entered into the PC giveaway, so if you want to win a brand new PC, sign up using the link at the top of the description.
I might have to
included
play it.
the $30 million
Wow.
Fortnite World Cup. Although every mouse and keyboard player was complaining about how overpowered aim assist was, controller players did not
I
perform
completely
well at
forgot
all.
Unknown
In
Army
fact,
was
out of
at the World
100
Cup.
players who qualified for World Cup solos, only 7 played
Seven
controller, and only
controllers.
2
7 controller players. I have no idea who some of these people are. Like, I have no idea who Wishy and Gusta are. Or Little and Jay. I don't recognize these. I don't recognize anyone apart from Mega and Dubs.
of the 100 players in duos were controller players. Considering around 75% of all Fortnite players use a controller, you would think more of them would be able to qualify. While Wolfies did manage to place second in duos, the best placement in solos was 33rd by Letchi, so the leaderboards were dominated by keyboard and mouse. So what happened that suddenly made controller players so good? Well, at the beginning of Chapter 2, new sensitivity settings were released. This made Fortnite on controller
sensitivity
much more
settings were
customizable,
amazing.
so everybody was able to build and aim better. One of the best players after this update was Unknown Army.
I'm such a controller player! Yo,
That was insane to do.
I just swiped on him!
He's dead.
Oh my god!
Unknown completely mastered aiming on top of piece control, and it showed in his placements. He won FNCS in Chapter 2 Season 1 and also managed to win 6 solo cash cups along with a couple duo cash cups. There was a huge shift on every tournament leaderboard this season, as time and time again there were more controller players earning than mouse and keyboard. While players like Unknown were using the legacy aim assist settings, which made L2 spamming broken, other controller players started to switch to linear. The thing is, everybody thought legacy aim assist was the real issue because of how overpowered Unknown made it seem. This single-handedly caused Epic Games to remove it, and everybody finally thought they nerfed controller into the ground, but little did they know it just got even better. Since everyone was so distracted by clips of players getting destroyed by L2 spamming, nobody realized that the new linear settings were even better. It was strong while aiming down sights, but the hipfire was basically aimbot. This meant that the new meta of fighting on controller was to jump in a box in 50-50. Most players wouldn't even carry a shotgun because carrying an AR and SMG was a better option.
Either double scar or single scar. Or an SMG. No shotgun allowed. I don't care.
This caused tournaments to be dominated by controller players, especially the solo FNCS Invitational, where 75% of all players that qualified were using one. In the same season, Epic Whale, who was one of the best KBM players on NA West,
remember him
decided to switch
switching
to
over.
controller and won an FNCS by doing so. Once this season ended, Fortnite obviously knew something needed to change, so they nerfed the strength of aim assist by about 30%. This would be reflected pretty quickly just by looking at the leaderboards, because most controller players relied on the overpowered aim assist instead of actual talent. As a lot of players started to fall off, a few players were bursting onto the scene. 2 of them were Day and Marrow. With the game mode being trios for all of 2021, playing with good fighters was a necessity, and Day and Marrow was the best. Along with Reverse 2K, they managed to win 2 FNCSs during a time where controller players didn't have much representation on the
Day is like
leaderboards.
one. Yeah,
The main
I don't
reason
know
for
if
this
Day
is
even
because
still
most
plays. I
trios
haven't seen
didn't
him on
wanna have more
leaderboard.
than
I know
one
it's
controller
like
player because it was much
Mirror
harder
and
for them
Ree,
to
some
get
of the
off
best
their
controller
standing.
players right
In
now
the
though.
entirety of 2021, there wasn't a single FNCS final with more than 20 controller players, and most of them had around 10 to 15. Although the best trio in the game had 2 controller players, most of them had 1 or 0. Luckily, Chapter 3 would change the game mode to duo, so this wasn't as big of an issue. Chapter 3 Season 1 also had one of the best metas ever for controller. The Stinger SMG was so broken and shotguns were so weak that barely anybody carried one. Close range tracking is much easier on controller
I
than it is
barely
on keyboard and
played,
mouse,
so
so when they
I barely played Chapter 3. It was the worst chapter thing they've ever made. Chapter 3 is awful.
spray heavy meta, this benefited controller players a ton. But somehow, even with the best case scenario, only 24 controller players managed to qualify for grand finals. Of course, Mero would go on to win FNCS with Booga, but most of the other controller players finished in the bottom half. After this, everything started to go downhill, and this was the last time we would ever see more than 20 controller players in a major tournament final. final. This is because of 3 main reasons. First is aim assist bugs. Chapter 3 and 4 had tons of issues where you would just randomly lose aim assist for an entire game. This might not seem like a huge deal, but aiming without aim assist is very difficult, and when you're in a lobby with the best of the best, you need it to perform. Second is the addition of scoped weapons. Weapons with scopes have very little aim assist, which makes it hard for controller players to get long-range storm surge tags. This means KBM players have a huge advantage, and since scoped weapons are still the norm in Fortnite today, it is a big reason why they dominate stacked lobbies. The
It's
third
true.
reason is the box fighting meta. With the entire game revolving around box fighting, most players on KBM nowadays are too far ahead mechanically to the point where controller players cannot keep up. Box fighting on KBM has always been way easier than controller because you can be much quicker with your movements and make more plays overall. And going into Chapter 4, this trend would continue with only about 15 to 20 controller players in each season's grand final. And going into the Global Championships in Copenhagen, only 9 of the 100 players who qualified for grand finals were on a controller. Of course, Mero won this tournament too. He doesn't even count. In under 3 years, we went from 70 plus controller players in every major tournament finals to under 10. You might be wondering if it's possible to ever see controller as the superior input, and the answer is no. Even
Yeah,
if aim
controller's
assist
not.
was buffed back to the
Yeah,
strength
like,
it was in
controller
early Chapter
players were
2,
never
the
better
game
than
has just
most
advanced
keyboard
to a point
players,
mechanically where good
especially
players really
mechanics.
counter it. If
It's
you
like
think about how
mechanics
good
is
the
so
average
hard
player
to
was in
against
2020
controllers.
compared to now, it is a massive difference. Do I want them to buff aim assist? No. But do I think it would be interesting to see if it could help controller players compete at a higher level? Maybe. If you enjoy videos like this, please subscribe because I want to
Right, so
complete...
thanks for watching again. I hope you enjoyed. Obviously, I added a lot to these videos. Second video I've recorded, I don't know if this will be the second video that will come out on Tiny Danny Reacts. Hope you're enjoying them. I'm like pre-recording the first 10 videos, and then they're gonna come out, I think, probably 2 a week. So that's 2 videos next 4 weeks. Just see how it does. If it does good, it does good. Remember, subscribe to Bruno's. Links in the description. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.